Chapter 3 was about linear functions. So at the top of your page, you're going to notice a couple of equations. These are ones you should be familiar with and maybe possible ones that you might want on your note card. Just remember in these equations that m always stands for the slope and b is the y-intercept here. Same thing down in point slope form, m is still the slope, and then the x1, y1 came from a different ordered pair where x is the first coordinate and y is the second coordinate. So just remember that, and then we'll go through some examples here. So first one was to solve. So hopefully you remember that we should distribute our negative first. So that would become 12x plus 2x minus 9 equals 26 plus 7x. From there, on the left side, I would put my x's together. So I get 14x minus 9 equals 26 plus 7x. From there, I would get my x's together. So I'd subtract 7x from each side. So that would give me 7x minus 9 equals 26. From there, I would add 9 to each side. So I would get 7x to equal 35. Finally, divide by 7. So you should get x to equal 5. So first step in linear, just remember how to solve. Hopefully that one's okay. Question 2 says, take a look at this data and determine if it is a function. Remember when it asks you if it is a function that you're actually looking at the second variable first. So it says, if is x a function of y, then you go ahead and you look at your y's. Once I look at my y's, I see 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, and 8. And I'm going to notice that 8 is matched up with negative 3 and negative 2. Okay, is that all right? No, that is not. Okay, so x is not a function of y because 8 has 2 different outputs. Remember, we had the candy machine idea there, so one input cannot have 2 separate outputs. So let's try B. This time I'm going to look at my x's first. I'm going to see negative 3, negative 2, 0, 1, negative 2, and negative 3. Well, negative 3 gives me 8 both times. So that is not a problem. It is a problem, however, that that negative 2 is matched up with 9 and 6. Okay, so the negative 3, the negative 3, 8, negative 3, 8 is okay. It is the negative 2 going to 2 different outputs that is not okay. So then if I go to part C, it says state the domain. Okay, domain is always your x's, and you have to put this in increasing order. So negative 3, negative 2, 0, and 1. And you do not list them if they appear more than once. The range in order will be 6, 7, 8, and 9. Again, you only list them once. Question 3 gives me an equation b equals 5a to the third plus a minus 1. Rewrite in Euler. Okay, so this was just where you rewrite the left side. So I'm going to cross off my b, and I'm going to write f of a. Okay, so this is always your variable that comes from the right side of the equation. So f of a, and then you always keep the right side the same. So 5a to the third plus a minus 1. So anytime you're changing notation, it's just what's on the left side. So it should be easy to look at part B, find f of negative 1. That just means I plug in negative 1 for all of my a's. So 5 times negative 1 to the third plus negative 1 minus 1 should give me a negative 7. Just watch your negatives here. Okay, make sure that anytime you do a negative number to any power, the negative is in parentheses and the power is on the outside. Okay, make sure you're getting that right. That'll be helpful on the exam. Okay, rewrite in mapping notation. So mapping was similar, but instead of parentheses, we would have a colon, the arrow, and an arrow. Okay, so it's always the name of it. Usually you use F, colon, A is whatever variable's on the right side, and then your arrow. So then 5a to the third plus a minus 1. Okay, things to keep in mind, you do not get to pick your variable. You can pick this first letter, but the variable here had to be the a, because it was on the right side. Okay, so you have to use that variable. Find f of negative 2. So again, all I'm going to do is plug in negative 2 anytime I see my variable, compute that out, and you should get a negative 43. Okay, let's take a look at number 4. Is it a function? Okay, I don't know what this thing looks like, so maybe I would graph it. Okay, anytime on your exam, if you don't know what something looks like, go ahead and graph it. First, I have to have a y equals, so I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 to the other side. If you graph that, you'll notice that you get a parabola that goes up at 2. So is it a function? That's where you use the vertical line test, and you ask yourself, if I draw a vertical line through this graph, Will it ever intersect it more than once? And that answer is a no. So is it a function? Absolutely, because it passes the vertical line test. Okay, state the domain. Domain is left to right. So as I start on the left and go to the right, I see it everywhere. So x is all reals. The range starts at the bottom, goes to the top. So that'd be y greater than or equal to 2. Okay, number 5, similar. Again, I would graph that so that you can see what that looks like. That graph, if you graph that, it's going to be over here at 2.5 and go to the right. Again, is it a function? Draw a vertical line through there. It will only hit once. So that's a pass. So yes, that is a function. The domain, left to right, I think that's about 2.5. So x is greater than or equal to 2.5. And then the range would be all numbers above 0. Okay. Number 6, rewrite for m sub 1. So here's my m sub 1. It's kind of messy. So anytime I have something this messy, I usually put f over 1 and then I cross multiply. Hopefully you thought of that as well. So when I cross multiply, I'm going to get 3fd squared to equal km1 m2. Okay, already that seems a lot easier. If I'm just trying to get m1 by itself, I'm going to divide by km2. And then that all cancels. So m1 equals 3d squared over km2. Okay, so cross multiplying is your friend. Number 7, solving for r. Okay, first get rid of your numbers. So if I have 1/3, to get rid of it, I'd multiply each side by 3. So I'd get 3v equals pi r squared h. Then I would divide by pi h because I'm trying to get r alone. So then I'm going to get r squared equals 3v over pi h. To get r by itself, square root it. So my final answer would be 3v square root of 3v over pi h. Just make sure when you square root it, that's your last step, and then it goes over everything, okay? Because on the exam, I'm sure they'll give you something like this to see if you know the difference, okay? So the square root is last. That is a non-correct answer. Number 8, following information, the name, the slope, and the intercept. So part A is a y and an x, so that is an oblique line. Okay, that means diagonal. The slope would be 1/5. And my y-intercept, because it's kind of like a +0, would be 0. Okay. Part B, okay, is written in standard form, not in slope-intercept form. So if you are most comfortable with putting that into slope-intercept form and then solving, you can. I don't need to, so I'll show you kind of the shortcut here. This one is still an oblique line. Okay, to find your m here, you do negative a over b when it's in standard form. Remember, and then this is your a and your b. So in this case, it would be -4 over -2. So my slope is 2. If you want to rewrite it, that's fine. You can check your answers from there. And then your y-intercept is whenever x equals 0. So I would plug in 0 there. So I'd get 0 minus 2y equals -8. So y would have to equal 4. Oopsies, there's an equal sign. So my ordered pair would be 0, 4. So my y-intercept would be 4. Again, 2 different ways to do it, depending on what you prefer or what you're more comfortable with. Maybe you don't want to do it that way, and that's just fine. Okay. Letter C is, let's divide by 6 first. So we're going to get y to equal -3. Well, y equals is a horizontal line. Okay, again, if you can't remember this, either this is something that goes on your note card or you just graph it on the exam. The slope of every horizontal line is 0. And the y-intercept of the horizontal line is -3. X equals 4 then must be the vertical line. The slope for all of those is undefined. Okay, these are maybe this piece of information, one being the slope of 0, one being undefined, are maybe important pieces of information that you have a hard time keeping straight. So maybe that's note card type stuff. I'm not really sure. Kind of depends on how you feel. And then the intercept, or the y-intercept, does not exist because it does not cross the y-axis. Okay, so information that either you know or you don't. So write it down if you don't. Okay, so to graph this, again, a lot of you may just want to rewrite this for y equals. I don't. I think you might want to save your time and use it elsewhere. You could just make a nice simple XY chart. Plug in 0 for x here. So then I get -4y equals -12. so y would equal 3. And then I can plug in 0 for y, so then x would have to be -2. Okay, so 0, 3, and then -2, 0, and then go ahead and graph that. Okay, if you're someone who wants to rewrite it for y equals, practice it, watch your negatives. That's the only thing I want to warn you about is watch your negatives and make sure your line looks like mine. Okay, number 10, write the equation of a line that is perpendicular to this line and passes through 0, 6. So I need to know the slope of this line. Again, I'm going to use the shortcut that says negative a over b. So that'd be -6 over -3. So the slope of that line is 2. Again, if you want to rewrite it, that's fine. Okay, so that means my slope for perpendicular means the opposite and the reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal means that my line needs to be -1/2. So if I know my line has a perpendicular slope and passes through 0, 6, that is really the y-intercept. So my line is -1/2 x plus 6. Okay? All right, let's try a few more. Number 11, write the equation line that's parallel, okay, and passes through 2, 3. So parallel lines have the same slope. Again, maybe this is information that you need for your note card. Okay, parallel and perpendicular, how are they related? So I know my slope is 2/3, and I have the ordered pair 2, 3, which means I'm using point slope form. So I'm going to say y minus my y coordinate, which is 3, my slope, which is 2/3, and then x minus my x coordinate, which is x minus 2. I think this one, nope, this one does not say standard form, so then you can just leave it like that. Okay, so that's kind of nice. We'll be done there. Number 12, though, is going to say standard form, so we'll get practice there. So perpendicular to the line that passes through 6, 3, and -10, 5, -5. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope between those 2 points. So -5 minus 3 over -10 minus 6. It's going to give me -8 over -16, which is going to give me 1/2. Now my line is perpendicular, which is opposite reciprocal, so my slope is going to be a -2. Okay, it also tells me I have a y-intercept of -3, so that gives me a b of -3. So my line is y equals -2x minus 3. Okay, to get into standard form now, this is in slope-intercept. To get into standard form, I need the x on the other side, so I'm going to add that. So I'd have 2x plus y equals -3. Okay, this is done in this case because all of the numbers on the x and the y are whole numbers, okay, and they are not negative. So make sure when you do it in standard form, you have whole numbers that are not negative. And I think maybe 13 is going to help us remember how to do that. So that's exciting. So parallel to this line, passing through 1, -4 in standard form. So parallel, so again, I need the slope of this line, which is in standard form. So again, I'm going to use the shortcut, which is -a over b. So that would be a -1 over -3. So this slope is 1/3. Which means my slope is also 1/3 because they're parallel, which means the same. And then I have a point. So I also need to use 1, -4. So then I need to use point slope form, which says y minus the y coordinate. So y plus 4 equals my slope, 1/3, x minus the x coordinate, which is 1. Okay, and now I have to get into standard form. So next thing I'm going to do is distribute. So y plus 4 equals 1/3 x minus 1/3. Okay, I need to get that x in front of my y. So I'm going to subtract it over. So I've got -1/3 x plus y plus 4 equals -1/3. Then I need to get my numbers together. So I'm going to subtract my 4. So I'm going to have -1/3 x plus y equals -13/3. And now here's what I was talking about in the last one. This part here is not okay. I cannot have a negative and a fraction on my x. So to clear it, I'm going to multiply by -3. Okay, and you're always multiplying by that bottom number. So once I multiply everything by -3, I'm going to have x minus 3y to equal 13. Again, just really watch your signs here. Okay, so writing lines is fun, and we'll continue on. With that, number 14, when Florence Flask joined the lab, she was given $26,000 salary and promised at least a $1,800 raise each year. Write an expression to represent the situation and how long until she reaches $35,000. Okay, so originally she was given 26 grand. She's getting more, so that's a raise, so it'll be plus 1,800 each year. Okay, remember anytime you see the each or the every, that's the one that gets your X on it. Okay, and you want that to equal your 35,000. Okay, you should be pretty good at solving here. Subtract 26,000. So you get 1,800x to equal 9,000 divided by 1,800. So you should get x to equal 5 years. Okay. Number 615, cost of making shoes is linear related. This is one of the exam ones that popped up as the most missed here. Okay, so let's see if we can do it this time. So it costs $14.50 to make 150 pairs of shoes and $16.75 to make 225. How much will it cost to make 500? Okay, so it said the cost is related to the number of shoes. So I would probably make the ordered pairs 150, $14.50, and 225, $16.75. So I'd set those up for the number, okay, because the number determines the cost. So number should be the independent variable. So let's find the slope here. So 1675 minus 1450 over 225 minus 150. So that slope should turn out to be 150. Okay, so now I have the slope, and then I have a point. Okay, so we can put this maybe into point slope form. So y minus 1450 equals 150 x minus 150. Okay, now at this point you could write an equation, but we don't have to. Okay, so I'm just going to pause you here. The question is, how much will it cost to make 500 pairs of shoes? Well, at this point I have an equation, and I need to know 500 pairs of shoes. So I'm just going to plug in 500 for x. Okay, so then you can subtract 150, which would be 350, multiply that, and then at the end you just have to add your 1450, and you should get a total of 53,950. Okay, so save yourself some time on the exam. Don't simplify it here. Okay, just plug in 500 for x and answer the question. Right, simple enough. Okay, 16. The local school supplier finds that it costs $7,600 to make 30 desks and $16,000 to make 100 desks. Assuming linear relationship, how much will it cost to make 1,000? Okay, so this is set up very, very similar to the last one. Okay, so I would make my ordered pairs. Come on, computer. Thank you. 30, 7,600, and 100. And 16,000. Okay, I'm going to kind of just give you the answers here, and I want you to work through this yourself. Okay, so once you find the slope, you should get the slope to be 120. Then you would pick a point, and I picked the first one. So I would get this equation, and then I would just plug in 1,000 desks here. You should get a final answer of $124,000. Okay, but work that one out on your own and make sure you can get that answer. Okay, and 17 should be the easiest question on the exam. Fit linear regression model. Anytime you see regression, you think calculator. Okay, on your calculator, that was under stat. Okay, first you enter in all the information, and then you go to stat, then you go to calc, and then you go lin reg. Okay, if you do that correct, and please practice this, you don't want to get the easiest one wrong. Y equals 0.825x minus 3.22. Okay, we're going to call that a wrap on chapter 3. Good job.